All right, we are live, I believe. It's saying we are. Hangouts on air is going away in August 1st. Man, that's come around quick. So, it's going away in August. Oops. Let me hit my thing there. There we go. Real professional I am here. Welcome, live from the crossroads of America. A 1-hour talk show about guns, politics, shooting with disabilities mainly, or anything else that crosses my mind. We'll answer questions from the audience, either in chat or by email. You can email me at rickslifeasiseeit@gmail.com or spottedrick@gmail.com. Also, this audio file will be on Podbean, iTunes, and Stitchers within 24 hours of the show ended. And all my other 100 and so many podcasts I've done are on there too. Somebody wants to go back and look at them. And if anybody wants to support me, I have a Patreon page, or you can make a one-time donation over on PayPal too. I have that. Everything's in the links below on Gun Channels or YouTube. Anyway, we got in the YouTube chat, we got Patriot in the Dark, Gun Loving Grandpa, Kingpin over there. Then we got G Webs on Gun Channels, David Bolin and Muscle Dog Mafia. And on my panel here, of course, we got people doing double duty, triple duty. One of them, we got Blind Shooter. How you doing?
Doing good, Rick. Thanks for having me.
All right, then we got the one and only Kingpin.
Hey, Rick. Thanks for having me, brother. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, then we got, what more can we say? The Patriot in the Dark.
Hey, Rick. How's it going?
All right. Then we got Squibload. He must be working.
Yeah, okay. I'm making money.
That's all right. Somebody's got to keep my Social Security coming.
Damn right.
Yeah.
You better thank me every time.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I didn't really have many topics for today because it's the day before the 4th of July. To some people, it's a big thing. Other people, it's not. You know, some people are ready for the 4-day weekend. Others have got to work through it all. You know? But I was saying before I know on air that I had my internet people finally come out, and they told me that the guy who came told me if he originally had the work order when I first moved in 7 months ago, he would have come and told me that I can't have internet from them because they wouldn't be able to provide the service that I'm paying for. He said you were over 3 miles. I think he said you're 3.4 miles away from the hub. And he said you are the last guy on. He said you are the last guy on the whatever they call it. But he said what we did was we lowered your bandwidth down for you to stay more stable. So that's where, and he advised me to actually look for other internet providers. So that's what I'm in the process of doing. But he came yesterday morning. It has been great. I mean, it's real slow. And I hadn't dropped my internet since yesterday morning until Patriot in the Dark joined the chat room. Then I lost my connection. But actually, I didn't lose the connection. I just got booted out of the room. So he's got some software he's working with there, I think. So,
well, you can kind of look at that as a positive, though, Rick. Not Patriot kicking you out of the chat, but at least your cable guy didn't try to sell you a bunch of thousands of dollars worth of stuff. He told you the truth that maybe you should find somebody else.
Yes, which is good. So they will be sending me an email survey asking me how that guy did, and I will give him high marks because he did do the job, what they promised to do. He did. He came early in the morning and said, I'm going to ride all the way back to the hub and work all the way back, checking the line to make sure, you know, that isn't the problem. And it took him a few hours out there in the heat. So give him credit for doing that. So anyway.
So it's a good thing if your cable guy tells you should find somebody else? Does that work with a woman too?
As long as she
depends what kind of-
doesn't take half of your stuff first.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm
Okay.
not saying a word.
No, I'm not either. I am not taking that one. So, but I have a question. It's got nothing to do with shooting with disabilities. Unless somebody has something they want to talk about on that. You know?
I do have something to mention, but I'll wait after you're done.
No, go for it.
I would just since you said that about, this guy actually, did a good job, told you, things that were positive, didn't, lie to you and stuff. Is that something that all of you guys do when somebody actually does a good job, or are you guys the type like Squibb that just does it when he wants to complain? Do you guys actually give good reviews? That's something I
answer
entirely of,
when I have any job done or anything, and then somebody asks me for a review. I do it every time, and I'm honest, good or bad. I will say it. Now I'm going to give the engineer a good review, but he did say the second half of the review would be about the service of the actual internet. Now that ain't going to be too good. Yeah, because the internet sucks.
I just mean, if you call somewhere and you actually get somebody that is actually, on the ball and actually tells you the things that you want to know, not just off the screen what they're supposed to read to you like everybody else. I usually call back and I try to get a supervisor or something to,
Oh yes, I've done that too.
Coffee and all that stuff.
I've done that too. I normally, because a lot of these times they tell you that it's being taped for training purposes or whatever. A lot of times I'll tell that person what a great job they've done, as well. So, all right. I also, if anybody wants to join the panel, I dropped the link in the gun channel side. If you're not a member of gun channels, I wanted to ask you why not. It's free. You can subscribe to gun channels, but it is free to join, and best place to be. And I see Muscle Dog has joined us. How you doing?
I'm doing real good. Happy to be off the road. Thank you for inviting me in.
Good to see you. So I said this is not gonna be so much of a shooting with disabilities chat, because I said it's there's not many people around, to be quite honest with you. Everybody's out doing their thing for the upcoming 4th of July. Oh, it's not actually 4th of July. It's Independence Day. It just happens to fall on the 4th, even though there's some dispute if it was actually on the 4th itself, but it's close enough. But I do have a question that I want to throw out in the panel. It's kind of, I don't know, would you call it? It's not political, but it's controversial, I would say. That it's to do with the way the state of the gun community right now, per se. And I ain't heard it so much in the last few weeks, but it's still out there. When people say it's going to be a civil war, they keep trying to take our guns away from us. Now, my question is, Civil War. Now, we did have one back in 1861, was it, in 65? Exact dates I don't remember. That was a Civil War. But way back in 1776, we had a revolution because people were trying to take the guns. That's how it all started up in Massachusetts. So, if it actually happens, is it a civil war or is it a revolution? Or is that one and the same?
No, a revolution. You're breaking away from the old way. A civil war are two factions that still have some sort of commonality, but they're fighting over an idea or something like that. The civil war is within, whereas a revolution is like overthrow. We're not talking about overthrowing. We're talking about fighting back, resisting.
Yeah,
and I really shouldn't say we, because I ain't one of the people out there preaching it. So I don't even know why I said that, but I guess we as a citizen, but not we as, no, I think the people out there running their mouths, there's two people. There's the people that do it to get views, and shame on you, especially when you claim to be in our community, because you're hyping up the low information voters that are on our side that just eat this stuff up and believe everything you say and worship you. And it's all about getting views because it's about money. This is about them exploiting the Second Amendment for their own pocketbook. And then there are the people that go out there and parrot everything they heard from the bigger channels, or they live in mom's basement, have one AK, don't make videos, and are angry all the time because they don't have a girlfriend and they really can't get something out of their system, and they think they're going to march down to the Capitol and just start the war. And it's like, dude, grow up, get a job, get your head out of your butt and learn how to work the system. Quit inciting violence. Quit. I'm kind of ashamed of some of the people in our community that keep doing that. But I've noticed that. I've noticed that you've got some of the big channels they just like to generate controversy for views. Views equal money. Even if they've been demonetized, views equal money. There are lots of ways.
Back to the question. It was just a question about Civil War or Revolution.
Yes. What do you think?
Well, Ooh, did I scare him off?
Yeah, you scared him off again. You've done it to him again.
Woohoo! Good guys winning. No, Civil War obviously is I don't know. I don't know which way it would go. Because a revolution is you're just fighting off tyranny and things that are happening. And so it doesn't matter if it's something new they're throwing at you or something they've been pushing for the last 100 years, trying to write you out of your rights and stuff. So I don't see it that way. I mean, people that are throwing this Civil War thing up thinks that anti-gunners are going to fight, and it's back, which is just ridiculous, anyways. But I don't know. The revolution might be, a better term for it.
Yeah,
because I don't see any anti-gunners, picking up arms to fight.
Yeah,
they're gonna.
That's what I was thinking.
Because and jab it at you and stand behind a row of police officers or something. That's what I think. So the revolution might fit it better as far as the term loosely.
Yeah, because loosely everybody's saying, Second Amendment, and it says one of the reasons they gave it to us is for we can, be protected from a tyrannical government, and people saying that is what's happening now. So, anyway, who was going to speak? Was that you, Muscle?
Yeah, well, we can look at our own history and the definition, the difference between a revolution and a civil war becomes pretty evident. The Civil War was between two opposing sides who at the end of the day really wanted to remain as a country, okay? They still saw themselves as Americans, just Americans on different sides of certain issues. Whereas a revolution is the goal to overthrow a government and displace it to create a new country. We're not talking about recreating a new country. We're talking about a war of maintaining rights and losing rights. So I think it would be classified fairly as a civil war.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I said I've just thrown this out there as a topic, but I'll talk about it anyway. Anyway, what's your view on it, Kingpin? If you have one.
Exactly. Like, what exactly are we talking about again? Like,
well, I'm just saying you hear a lot of people saying if the anti-gunners or the Democrats keep pushing gun control, there's going to be a civil war. My question is it a civil war or is it a revolution?
well, the definition of civil war is a war between citizens of the same country. So it all depends. If we're fighting the government, then it wouldn't be a civil war. But if we're fighting the people across the street, I imagine it would be. But I don't think it's going to come to that. I don't think it's
I
even
don't either, to
remote.
be honest with you.
I don't even think it's even remotely close to even being something that should even be thought of. You know,
I don't either. Personally, I think it's all going to be won or lost in the courts.
this nation is not nearly as divided as people want to tell you it is.
Correct.
You know, I mentioned it. I mentioned it before. Take a notepad with you, and write down all the racism you see all day. Write down all the other hatred and violence and vile, nasty stuff that you see every day. And next week when we come back here, we're all going to have really, really short lists. Because if you don't watch the news, I'm talking about your own personal life. If you have anything on the list, it's going to be a short list. You know, but if you turn on the news, then you'd think that every single thing out there is evil and rotten.
Oh yeah, you're right there. What about you, blind shooter?
I mean, either way you look at it, I mean, technically it's considered civil war, but if you're fighting tyranny, it's revolutionary war. But regardless of what you call it, at the end of the day, if it does happen, lives are going to be lost, no matter which way you call it.
Yeah, yeah. But as I said, it was only a hypothetical question I was throwing out there, but I was just trying to get the conversation going here. But
I mean, like,
as somebody else says, I don't think it's ever going to come to that. I really don't. And I think it's going to be won in the courts, won or lost in the courts, to be honest with you.
But before you jump topic, I'd like to say that I agree with all of you. I don't think it'll ever come to a full, at least not at this point, I don't think it would come to a full-out civil war. I think, if anything, particularly if the courts decided against American rights, I think you'd see something similar to the whiskey war we had about, what was that, 10 years after the Civil War, where we had a state threatened to uprise, but that lasted 3 days.
Yeah.
We're not going to have.
Wasn't? Yeah, I think that was after the Revolutionary War.
That was after the Revolutionary War, right?
Yeah, because that was George Washington. He wasn't around.
Yeah, George Washington, he was the last president to ride into battle himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it would be something like that. I don't think it's going to be this huge, epic nuclear meltdown people fret over.
You're right. I don't think it is either.
And the only reason I said the revolution was because, yes, a revolution is usually to overthrow and change the government. But from a point where a government starts to take your rights and things like that, a revolution I still would consider it a revolution to return it to the way it should be, or the way it originally was, would be a revolution if you're going against whatever they're trying to push at that moment. I don't think it has to be a total, tear down to the base, and rebuild something. I think if you're trying to change something, I don't know, maybe not. Not that it's going to happen, but.
Yeah.
Well, first thing that you should ask somebody who's screaming about, civil war and killing people is why. And not why, because they're taking my rights. Blah, blah. No, but the why. Why do you have to pick up a gun, a knife, a bat, your fist, and go violently attack somebody, whether they're taking your rights or not? Why are we even considering a violent outcome? Because if your answer is to defend this country and what it stands for, well, it stands for, and it's been built on, we don't need to fight anymore.
Well, I think based on that, it comes. Sorry to cut you off.
We have a system set up of laws and checks and balances that, if it's put in its proper place through, like Patriot said, revolution, saying you are doing wrong and we're not going to put up with it anymore. We don't have to kill each other. That's what the original revolution was about. That's what the original Civil War was about. That's what civil rights movement was about, and all these other things that we've grown through our nation. And so in 2019, when somebody's messing with us, we don't need to fight them. We can protest them and, like Rick's already said, legislatively get this handled. If not, then what are we doing here in the first place? If our only answer is, if you take something away from me, I'm going to kill you for that, then I don't know. That doesn't sound right to me.
Well, see, I think based on that point, I mean, I think some people are resorting to the violent aspect because of the whole quote, and I forget who said it. The pen is mightier than the sword, but you always have the sword for when the pen fails. And I mean, maybe not all across the country, but there's definitely some states where a lot of people feel that, the pen isn't working anymore because the courts just literally don't give a damn. And I think we'll see more of that come like October when the Supreme Courts take up the majority of the gun cases that they're saying they're going to hear. And I think if they rule in favor of the gun control side, you're going to see more people come out and say, you know what, we've tried long enough going the judicial route, letting the Supreme Court handle it. They're abusing their power. They're just siding with whoever's lining their pocket. So what's the next best step? Because we're never going to get anywhere. And I mean, I've heard a lot of states, New York being one of them, where a lot of people don't want to result to violence, but they're trying to annex themselves from the state and become a state within a state.
Well, it should never get that far either way.
Yeah,
I mean,
but then
if you get everybody that you know and you talk to people, and we actually do what we're preaching all the time about talking to other people and bringing people into the mix and focusing on liberty instead of just firearms, because firearms is just a very small portion of it. There's a lot of people that would be going our way if they realized that things that they enjoy, they believe in, they want, are being restricted or stepped on too. So if it ever got to that point, it's because we failed and we didn't do what we were supposed to be doing. Because that's why we have elections. It's why we have the town square to talk in, is to get our views out there. And if things get bad where you got to fight, it's because we didn't talk right or we didn't get our views expressed, or maybe our views are wrong. I mean, not that they are, but with
okay.
the majority, you have to get out there and you have to.
I understand what you're saying. I'm trying to be positive myself too, but here's a question for you all. Back to, I've mentioned this before when it comes to voting. So you have your so-called, I'm not even going to call him a Democrat or Republican, but you have your one guy that you really like. You like everything he's saying to you. That sounds great and everything, but he doesn't have a pro 2A stance. Then you have the other person, it could be another guy or female, whichever, who you don't like anything he's saying, like health care, the economy, or anything like this, but is a staunch 2A person. Who are you going to vote for?
Well,
are you going to? Yeah, go on.
I just to the point where when you wait until it's only two options, I mean that's part of it. Is there's a lot of people out there that sit and wait until elections, I'm going to vote, but between here and then they don't do anything. Where's that guy that might have views like you? Who are you talking to promote them? I mean, locally, you can get there's people that in my area that run unopposed all the time. The only reason they get in or voted on because they're the only one on the ballot. So there's things that you can start. You can try to push for somebody that's either or somebody that might be you. Take these small offices. You got to start somewhere. And if you're just going to wait until November of next year to do something, and just think that you marking a box is really doing something, I mean, that is doing something, that is voting, that is moving in the right direction. But if that's all you're doing, that's not enough. And it's like waiting until your house is all engulfed in flames to say, oh well, I'm going to call the fire department now. You don't wait. You should be proactive as much as you can. But that's me. So I don't know. I'm going to run for my local treasurer.
Do that. I think you
Because
should.
he's always been unopposed, and I don't care for him.
Yeah, I think you should do that because you do talk a lot. So I think you make a good
You
politician.
guys just all write in and vote for me, even though you don't live around here.
We'll do that. We're all moved to Michigan just to be able to vote. You know. All right, no, this is just a three. I mean, I'll just throw in. I've talked about this stuff before. Yeah, but I mean, there's people in the chat. I think even Sean said it in the chat. I mean, if we're letting it get down to just two issues, we've let it go way too far.
Mm-hmm. I agree. You know? I mean, it's kind of you got to be pushing all the time. You know. I mean,
yeah. You
sure,
know,
it's great to have
of course,
a
I'm trying to stay positive like you, Patriot. You know, on that think positive, think liberty and stuff. But I mean,
just like that, everybody works. You know, you work all week long, and you work for the weekend to have that few minutes off, that hour off, that day off, whatever.
But how can
but
we
you do know that you have to turn around and go back to work. You know, it's just not going to fall in your lap. You have to do the work because nobody else is going to work for it and just hand you all that stuff.
Yeah. What's scary is we do need to work for it because we don't want California to spread any further. Just 3 days ago. Now you got to get a background check just to buy ammo. You know, I mean, it seems to me I mean, I don't want to call it a losing cause there because there's people there fighting all the time, but the way that their voting system is gone, it's rigged is the wrong word. It's set up to where, I mean, even like when it comes to the primaries, it's the two highest people on the ballot get to go forward, whether it's two Republicans or two Democrats. It's not one from each party. It's the two highest in the voting system, if I remember correctly. You know, which I think, you know, but what can we say?
Well, you got to look at it.
As a former resident of California, and I was a long-term resident there technically, what you're talking about is you're right. We need to keep California from pushing policy outside its own borders. But I like to use California as a talking point when people talk about, you know, getting rid of the Electoral College. California is a prime example of why an Electoral College is necessary and why we're a republic and not a pure democracy. Because California is run by essentially two areas of the state. If you actually go to California and you travel up and down that state, you'll find that a lot of people between San Francisco and Los Angeles are not left. And a lot of people above Sacramento and up are not left. There's a huge portion of that state that would actually be red if it wasn't for the fact that the state elections are held on a purely democratic level. So they can basically be outrun by the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland, and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Those places control that state. And everybody else is just kind of victim to it.
Well, that's like here in New York also. I mean, if you go outside of New York City, it's heavily red. Like there are more Trump supporters and Republicans outside the city limits than ever before. But because New York City has so many Democrats that we pretty much trump the rest of the state, so it doesn't matter what the election is for, whether it be, you know, city council, mayor, governor, the Democrats are always going to win because there's just more of them than there are Republicans, and they don't stand a chance. And to touch on what Rick was saying with, like, you know, stopping California may not spread, but a lot of the other states now are jumping onto their ideology of what California is doing. And I mean, I'll give you an example of Pennsylvania. They are trying now to not only give illegal immigrants driver's licenses, but they're trying to rewrite the law for the state, which would allow illegals to vote in elections.
Oh yeah, I saw that coming. I saw that coming when states started allowing illegals to have driving licenses.
But that you have to look at it both ways though, because that, if you were on that side where you're feeling, I know California and New York, they have a lot of people, but we have states that are really gun friendly, really free states. Constitutional carry has carried over to what, 17 states now. So both sides have their sides that they're scared about. I mean, obviously having more people in California and New York City than Utah has, obviously that's an issue unless they get rid of the electoral college. But so I don't know. I see you still have to push back. Can't just.
Yeah, but isn't there a movement right now where I can't know how many states have done it now, but where they're saying they want to do away with the electoral college? They're 100. They got like 180 electoral votes or whatever, saying they want to do away with it.
That's been going on since Trump got elected, and the only reason they're doing that is because they're all sore losers.
Yeah, problem is, if that ever happens, I feel it will be a one-party country from then on, because as you said, you got those 3 cities in California which are all Democrat, Chicago, New York City. I mean, that's mainly most of the votes for the Democrats for an election, right there alone.
Well, I mean, I live in a state because I left California and I came to Nevada, and if you look at the election result map from our last election, the Democrats won Nevada only because of 2 cities, because those 2 cities have a populace that's outnumbers the rest of the state.
Oh yeah,
that's the result of a pure democracy, which is why an electoral college, especially at the federal level, needs to stay. I would be more afraid of a civil war if I believed that they were really going to take away the electoral college than I am about them going after our guns and threatening to go door to door.
yes, I am too.
I think the voting also comes down to, just people being lazy. I mean, what you were saying, Muscle, about, Nevada became Democrat because of 2 main areas. Out of those 2 main areas, is there any real way of figuring out how many Republicans are registered and how many actually bother to get up off their ass and vote?
So about 5 years ago, you can actually see the exodus of conservative people leaving those cities, and now they all live in the outer counties. If you actually look at like all the elections from like the past 10 years, you can watch that cycle happen. As more and more of Las Vegas and Reno have become more and more progressive thinking, I guess that's what we'll call it, you see more and more conservative people moving out of those cities. They now all live in the adjoining counties. And it shows historically when you look at the voting rate and when you look at the map. So I agree with you that definitely voters getting off their butts and going to vote would definitely help. But there's clearly I guess you'd call it voter flight happening.
And yeah, isn't that an argument for people to not leave California then?
I'm guilty of that too. I left California because I left California for economic reasons. They voted for policies that just made it too expensive to continue living there, and that's kind of what you see happening here. The housing rate in Vegas has almost doubled in 3 years. Just keep that in mind. I used to be able to get an apartment in Vegas for a third of what it cost today 3 years ago. Yeah. And so they're basically pricing a lot of people out. And I don't know what it is about the difference in mentality between the voting sides, but I'm not willing to pay $3,000 for an apartment. And there's not too many other conservatives I've met who are willing to do that. So we all tend to fly out where it's cheaper to live, and that's what's happened in California. Is you see a lot of conservatives leave California because they're like, well, we can't win any of our state votes because we get overrun by these two major Democratic hubs, and the people are voting to tax us out of existence.
Yeah. I mean, what's called in the chat, Lunatic Rider. He lives in California. Still there. He says he's fighting the fight, but as he said, everybody's jumping ship. Not only are they jumping ship, the conservatives are, but the liberals have got tired of the high taxes that they've created, and they're moving out to like Nevada, to Las Vegas, and all these other states. Same with New York City. All the rich people are moving out and moving down to Florida, bringing their politics with them.
Exactly, and it makes no sense. They're leaving because of the high taxes and property rate, but they'll go and they'll vote for it when they get to the new state.
Exactly. And that is what's happening. Hate to say, you guys from Texas, you're getting you're getting a very light shade of purple there, especially with Austin. You know what I'm saying? Because people have, that has changed from a very Democratic, very Republican, I won't even say Republican conservative area to now it's very progressive in Austin. You know? So it's a tough one. And we've got to be positive. As go back to what Patriot says, we all need to get out there, talk liberty, talk what's going on, talk to everybody, not just about guns, but just about, our rights and stuff and how they need to thing. And hopefully, and I think it was, who was it? Was it Squib before he left, or was it somebody else? Or was it David? It's not as bad out there as the main media tries to make it out to be.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it's not bad, but it's
not polarized.
The what?
It's not as polarized.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. But it's definitely out there. Yeah. Oh, unknown user said you can have a quiz now. He's here.
Yeah, I didn't even send one today, but
no, you didn't. No, there's no quiz today. He didn't even send me one. So you're out of luck, unknown user. So
he wins them all
talking about that real quick. While we're talking about quizzes, and don't forget, I had my show last Saturday, and my next one is not until the 13th. So you got all this time. And my question was for my super duper pack here. It had about 3 patches in it, sample gun oil, stickers, and all kinds of good stuff in there. It's almost like a double pack. In the 1974 movie Mac Q with John Wayne, it was the very, very first police drama set in the modern era that he's ever played. And what I wanted to know was, in the climactic beach shootout, what gun did he use? He got from a gun shop. Also, what handgun did he buy from that same gun shop when the police department confiscated his last revolver? And also, one of the bad guys in that shootout on the beach used the same gun that he had confiscated. The bad guy had it in a 6-inch barrel. John Wayne had used a 4-inch barrel and a 2.5-inch barrel. And I want to know the make and model of what that was. So you had 3 questions there. All you got to do is give me 2 of them to be classed as the correct answer. So email me at rickslifeasiseeit@gmail.com or spottedrick@gmail.com with the answer to those questions by lunchtime next Saturday, the 15th, to be entered into the quiz. All right, back to the chat.
I do have a question for the panel.
Okay.
I bring up that, talk about liberty and focus on liberty instead of, just firearms. Now, what do you think is things that, other people out there that aren't, 2A minded people, what are liberties you think that they would um, be up in arms if they thought were getting taken away or stepped on? Just as to brainstorm and throw some out there to get people thinking about liberties instead of just firearms.
Well, that's an easy one.
All right, what?
I mean, in general, like right off the back, religion, speech, and alcohol. And we've seen the infringement on alcohol from back in the bootleg days of what happened when they tried taking away that. So,
Yeah, but they actually did get it taken away. I mean, luckily, one of the rare things they actually got it back.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Focus on, say, one of your neighbors that you kind of know that they're not, firearm people. Think of one of those neighbors and think of something that they would be up in arms if was taken away from them or restricted in some crazy way.
one of their rights.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I get what you're trying to get at, Patriot. But I mean, as somebody who travels all over the place, I don't know if it's necessarily one right that I would say that would get people up in arms, because what I'm finding when I interact with all these different people all over the country is most of them are completely ignorant to their rights in the first place. And I think it's not just about finding which right they're going to be most offended about.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't even realize the rights that they have, so they don't realize they're being stripped away.
Yeah.
I think the focus needs to be letting people know that they do have rights.
Yeah.
And that, it doesn't help when the mainstream media says all these things are they're a constitutional right, when the Constitution doesn't talk about anything that they're talking about.
Yeah.
People are deeply confused about what the Constitution says. I've had, just in the last week, I've had 5 people tell me, well, healthcare is a constitutional right. The Constitution doesn't say anything about your healthcare.
Yeah, and the things what I meant was more, not focus on what rights that are stepped on, but things like, just like that, if your neighbor is a
I would say my neighbors
alcoholic
are
or
more.
something, some kind of idea that, hey, you're a patchouli smelling professor, your books or something are
Mine are more interested in how much more money stays in their wallet. So mainly that'd be the economy and taxes mainly.
and again, for my neighborhood, it's going to be the alcohol because they're all a bunch of winos around here.
Dead Horse on Gun Channel said we traded the end of prohibition for the NFA.
He's got a point.
Yeah, he's got a point.
The problem that you're going to have, and that I run into quite often when I use that tactic of, you're a gardener. What if they started taxing flowers or made azaleas illegal? That kind of thing, is they don't believe that next step is going to happen. They think that they're so focused on the fact that if we take and make it impossible for people to have guns, everything will be fine and you won't have to worry about anything else. Just like we've always heard, no one's coming for your guns. They say no one's coming for your speech. No one's coming for your property rights. No one's coming for your this, your that. So convincing them that there's a natural progression to tyranny. If they took the second away, why wouldn't they take it away? If they take away guns because they want to make the country safe. Okay, so what else are we going to take away because safety is important, or whatever reason they want to strip whatever right away? They're going to use that same reason to go after more, and getting people to understand that that's what's going to happen is a little bit difficult.
And that's an awesome segue, right? Just what you said, to show them that progression that's why I yesterday I suggested, a lot of people know the Declaration of Independence. You can quote like 2 lines in the whole thing, right? But everybody skips over the grievances. Read through those grievances and see what pushed us to the point where we were saying enough is enough, right? And see how many of those things are lining up, because it's crazy on how many things that I mean, they didn't really want to have to go through all that, but once you stack up everything on top of each other, that whole progression, it's just interesting. If you haven't read it in a while, read it.
That's a good idea, actually. I haven't read it in a while. I think I'll pull it out and read it.
I posted it over on Gun Channels on the Dark Side page in the notes.
That's good. That's good. Oh, by the way, for all you drinkers out there, and as you know, I have, most people know, I mean, I haven't drank for 21 years, and this was my favorite drink. 45,000 barrels of Jim Beam bourbon went up in smoke on the big fire at the factory. If I was still a drinker, I'd be crying right now.
You said that, and Squib came back into the chat room.
Yeah.
Hey, Squib. We're worried about you. We thought you fell off the roof.
Yeah, we did. We thought you hit the dirt.
Well, he just stayed around if Patriot didn't bully him so much.
I think that, like you guys were all saying, I think that, people need to be educated on the fact that what their rights are. And once they understand that what their rights are, I think then it'll be potentially easier to show them how rights get taken away. Because right now, I mean, when I got home the other day, they had the news about that reporter that got beat up in Portland had just come out. And everyone in this room agrees that the division of this country is not as, polarized nationally as the media would have us think. But to the person who's not paying attention, the person who's easily swayed, all they saw for the last couple of days of coverage was a bunch of rioters beating somebody in a street. Well, actually, they beat multiple people in the streets. And that becomes people's outlook on things. They're humans are like any other animal. When they get scared, they will do anything to feel safe. And right now, it seems like there's a portion of the country that is willing to give up their rights just so that they can have the illusion of safety.
There's also a large portion of the country that has no idea that happened because CNN and MSNBC haven't been covering it. You're not reading about it in the New York Times. You're not reading about it in the Washington Post. If you're on the internet, you've seen it. If you checked out Fox News, you've seen it. You may have seen a minute of it covered on CNN, but they're not covering it. So all those, few viewers that they still have left have no idea that it even happened.
Yeah. And if they're not using TV, which somebody mentioned this to me the other day, I mean, people are still watching it, but, the internet is, social media is a big thing. But you got to be careful what websites you're getting your information from. Another one, a big one people are getting their information from is Vox, and they're very liberal.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm talking about is like, when I'm saying in the media, I'm not talking about CNN and MSNBC. I have a Twitter account that has nothing to do with firearms. Okay, it has nothing to do with politics. I have a separate account strictly for what I do with canines, and that feed alone has been just swamped with notifications over that story. That's how I first found out about it. And I can't remember exactly. I don't remember if it was CNN or Fox or whoever it was, but There was a poll recently where they asked how many people get their news from Twitter. And it was something like 39% get their news from their Twitter feeds. That's insane. You
And
know?
that's just getting where they're looking. And, if you're looking at some crazy person, then you're going to just get crazy person's news.
But you said people are easily swayed. Do you think that there's a section of the population that's easily swayed the other way too?
Well, I think that the biggest threat to us is that the illusion of this division becomes reality. People become afraid, and when they become afraid, they run to whatever side they feel safe with. And as long as we're running to sides instead of having real conversations like we're doing here right now, eventually you get to a point where there's nobody left in the middle. I don't think this is going to be a progress that's going to happen in a year or happen in one election, but it would definitely be something that if it continues on this trajectory, you could probably start the clock.
Would you say that one of the hurdles to having that conversation with just anybody is the fact that people are busy, they don't have time, they don't want to do research, they don't want to think for themselves, they think you're trying to sell them something, have you noticed that sometimes when you ask somebody to use their brain, that's one of the quickest ways to get them
to run out of the room?
Yeah, I guess.
If you ask anybody anything, the first thing they do is they reach for their phone. And that's where the problem is. Instead of having
they skim the headline and don't read the article kind of mentality, you mean?
Exactly. And in a lot of cases with Twitter, a lot of people are getting false information from things because we all know how easy it is to fake a tweet. Okay. They've been doing it for years, basically since Twitter it was an inception. People have been altering pictures and altering headlines and only putting the little paragraph photo that they doctored up, and people take that as information when they skim through it, and they don't try to follow it to the original source or anything. And a lot of times I've met lots of people over the years now who, when you ask them where they're getting their information or why they believe what they believe, they grab the first thing they do is they reach for their phone, and you're like, okay, well, did you look into anything or did you just skim it? And there's a huge, not the majority, I don't think it's the majority yet, but there's a good chunk of people who literally believe those little flash bits of information to always be true. And that's what's creating this animosity and fear of the polarization, which is causing more people to run further and further to their sides instead of having those real conversations. I've never wanted for technology to go away for 30 days any more than I've wanted recently, because I think that would force us to have real conversations.
You think that starts with at school when they have a question, they say go Google it instead of go to the library and pull out an encyclopedia or a book and actually read it?
No, I think it starts at the dinner table at home. I think that if you're a parent and you're relying on the school, you have an issue. As a product of public education, I will tell you, it doesn't work. But it starts at home. It starts with people actually having real conversations with their kids and not depending on the school to teach their kids values. School is there to teach your kids that 2 + 2 = 4. And if your school says it doesn't equal 4, get them out of that school. And, they're there to teach your kids how to read, write, how to do math. Maybe luckily they'll graduate and know how to balance a checkbook.
But the problem I understand where you're coming from, but the problem with that is, right? The parents of the kids today were taught 2 + 2 = 5.
No, we weren't.
No, we got it taught right. Now they do all that weird math.
And the only option to taking your kids out of that school is to homeschool them which is difficult when both parents in the household have to work in order to make ends meet. I'm not saying impossible, but difficult.
Well, again,
So-
I'm not saying to take your kids out of school. I'm saying that parents need to not rely on school to teach their children things like their sense of morals and their sense of self. That needs to start and be taught at home by the parents. As a parent, I mean, I was basically mostly raised by my grandparents, thank God. So I was raised by a member of the greatest generation. And I believe that if it wasn't for that influence, I would probably be one of these leftists that everybody hates. Okay? Because I grew up in a public school in California. So, but everything that I know about pride, right and wrong, all of that stuff is stuff that I learned at home around the dinner table. It's not stuff I went to school to learn. I went to school and learned how to, score weed, alcohol, and girls. I didn't learn morals and values at school. So if you want your kids to have morals and values and all those kind of things and be able to think for themselves, you have to start by telling them to think for themselves as the parent, I think. You can't rely on the school to do that because the school is not designed to teach your kids to be individuals. The schools are there to, here, do these things, pass this test, here's the doctrine we've been told to give you. So that's why I think that, our education system is worried about things that aren't education related. Education should be, here's how you do math, here's how you learn how to read and write, stuff that you're going to need to live in the adult world. But your parents need to teach you at home everything, the foundation for everything else. So that way, when you come out of school, you can think for yourself. You have a sense of, some kind of morality. When you mentioned, the parents that raised this generation being different than the ones before, yeah, parents, they think that the school is responsible for their kid being a bad kid. Well, I think we're all old enough to be real. If you've got a problem kid who's a problem at home, they're going to be a problem at school. And it's not the school's job to parent them.
Well,
That's your job.
Today, though.
So, yeah.
Anyway, guys, it's a great conversation. But it's come to
Rick, so he's hungry.
Yes. I'm going to throw some hot dogs on the grill as I'm throwing hamburgers on the grill tomorrow. I'm having hot dogs tonight and hamburgers tomorrow. So,
you're doing a 2-day celebration.
Well,
yes.
I just suggest everybody take the few minutes and actually read through the Declaration of Independence. Focus on those grievances and just look at them and see why we're where we're at.
Well, that's what I was planning on doing tomorrow as well. So I want to. Anyway, we're going to call it quits because as I said, I'm getting hungry. Yes, midnight sandwiches 2 days in a row. Hot dog sandwich and a hamburger sandwich. And actually, because it's the 4th of July, I went all out and bought hot dog buns and hamburger buns instead of using just the regular old slice of bread. That I do most of the year. I went all out.
I just say everybody be safe lighting those fireworks.
And I got to make sure I got plenty of mayonnaise for David if he comes over.
Yeah, I'll bring the extra firecrackers to take care of that mayonnaise.
Okay, actually, talking about that, I had an English dinner last night. I fried up a couple of eggs with some French fries, egg and chips, as they would call it in England. But I went German on it. Instead of putting vinegar on my French fries, I put a big spoonful of mayonnaise on the side there to dip my fries in. Oh, man, it was great.
Eggs and chips.
So, okay, I'm out of here. I want to say thank you to everybody for joining in the chat here tonight. It's been great. I want to say thank you for stopping by on the eve of Independence Day. Enjoy your vacation tomorrow or If you don't, if you gotta work, good for you too. I need you all to keep working because I need my Social Security check to keep coming. You know, I ain't bashful about it. So, I want to say thank you all for being here. I'll be here next Wednesday at 7 p.m. for Shooting with Disabilities, and we'll get back on track. Shooting with Disabilities. You know, waiting for some questions to come my way because to help me out. I need all the questions I can get. Also,
Yeah,
I will.
Patriot, stop slacking off.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Make sure you check out Rick's Patreon page at Patreon.com/Rickslife. I don't know what somebody.
Rick's Life as I see it.
Yeah, that one.
It's down in his lower thirds or his upper thirds.
Yep,
Behind
right
that
on the,
www.
Yep, right on the screen there, actually. And this broadcast will be available within 24 hours over on iTunes, Stitcher, and Podbean. Make sure that you check us out not this Saturday, but the following Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Rick's Life as I See It for a Saturday chat. And Rick will be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern.